All right, let's talk about what we all are talking about, right? What's been always on all the sports shows, what you hear Skip and Shannon talking about every single day, offensive lines. It's what everyone loves to talk about, so let's get into it. Hey, I like to talk about it, and you clicked on this video, so you like to talk about it. So let's talk about it. Top 10 offensive lines heading into the 2023 season, in my opinion. Number 10, I don't know if this would be number 10 on a ton of other people's boards, but I kind of like this offensive line a little bit. For one thing, the Patriots, you got to just trust them a little bit. They do know offensive line. They do have a history of being successful with some of the stuff in a way that, we don't always expect. But Trent Brown is a total wild card. He just is. There's no denying that. But you have Michael Onwenu, who can play anywhere. Probably will play guard to start. Cole Strange, your other guard, who I thought was fine as a rookie. Wasn't spectacular, but I thought was fine. Maybe not a first-round pick, fine, but still. You have David Andrews, who I think is good, and they added Riley Reef, a tackle, who, again, I think could be very good for them. So, while maybe they don't have, the superstar talent they've had in the past, Michael Onwenu, I think you could still argue, is that. And again, it's the Patriots. I trust that they have depth and will figure stuff out when injuries happen, which they typically do for offensive line. So, again, not the best offensive line in the world, but I'm going to have it here at 10. Number 9, I'm going the Cowboys here. Now, one thing with the Cowboys is you look at the tackle situation of Tyron Smith and Terrence Steele. You have to wonder how many snaps are we going to get out of Tyron Smith, because he's still very good when he's on the field. And if that's the case, and he is on the field and good, him and Steele should be a great tandem, which could be awesome, because you have the great guard tandem right now of Tyler Smith and Zach Martin. Tyler Smith, drafted as a tackle, but looks like he's going to play guard next year, at least unless Tyron Smith, again, very similar names, but unless Tyron Smith gets injured, then maybe he'll go back to guard. But for now, if you had those two guys at guard, you had Tyler Badaz, I believe that's how you say his name. Probably not, but I'm trying my best here. If he's center, those are 5 really good offensive linemen. Just the question and why they're a little bit lower is just the Tyron Smith. What are we going to get out of him this year? Number 8 is Atlanta, who's always a really difficult team to put on the list. Because for one thing, I think Jake Matthews, Caleb McGarry, and the tackle tandem, Jake Matthews, Caleb McGarry, great. Chris Lindstrom at right guard, I think, is great. So their question is the other two guys, their left guard and center. For left guard, they have second-round pick Matthew Bergeron, who they're hoping can come in and slot into that role. Not the best analytics, Matthew Bergeron, not someone who I'm totally too high on, but we'll see how it goes. They did spend a second-round pick on him, in an early one, a top 40 pick on him, so they like him. Drew Dahlman, I think, isn't a star at center, but should be fine enough there. So as long as they can patch up those two spots, this could be an elite offensive line, but there's still a couple question marks, so that's why they're at 8. Next up at 7, we'll start off with the tackles, as you have Trey Pipkins, who it might be a weak spot of this offensive line at right tackle, but left tackle, Rashawn Slater, getting him healthy and back should be huge for this offensive line, as he missed all of last year most of last year, I should say, due to injury. That was Jermaine Slater who filled it, and actually did a pretty good job filling in for him, so he's going to probably play guard. Left guard is what I would assume he will play. Then you have a couple, Corey Linsley, who's a great center. They paid him money, and rightfully so. He's very good. And Zion Johnson, I thought, looked pretty good as a rookie. Maybe not a superstar, but pretty good. So I really trust 4 out of the 5 offensive linemen here with, the Slaters, Linsley, and Johnson, but Pipkins is the question mark, so that's why they're not quite in the top 5 or 6, but they're still a very good offensive line. Next up is the Indianapolis Colts. Listen, this is a very hot button team to talk about offensive line wise. Some people wouldn't even have them on the list. I have them here pretty high on the list at 6 because I'm banking on guys to have bounce back years. I'm banking on Quentin Nelson and Ryan Kelly, who didn't maybe have their best seasons last year, to bounce back. I thought Braden Smith was still pretty good at right tackle, so that, and I thought that Bernard Rainman, that was the weirdest player ever, where a lot of people thought Rainman should have been a second round pick. I was like, no, this guy should be a first round pick. He's so underrated. He went in the 3rd round, but then looked like a first rounder. So I don't know what the hell happened there, but he's very good. The only real question I have here is Will Fries at right guard. That's kind of the biggest question. I wouldn't say the only question, because again, Will, Nelson, and Kelly have their bounce back years. I think they will. I think this line will be very good. I have it at 6. Next up at 5, another offensive line I think is underrated, which is the Denver Broncos offensive line. So the Broncos had left tackle Garrett Bowles, who's very good, and added right tackle Mike McGlinchey, who I've always felt is underrated. 49ers fans aren't crazy about him, but I think he's very good, and I think he'll fit this scheme maybe even better than he fit San Francisco's scheme. So I actually like this tackle tandem. They also added Ben Powers, who I think could be, one thing that's always concerning with someone like Ben Powers is he's coming off of a rookie, sort of a career year out of Baltimore where he got paid, contract year guys. There's always that question mark, but hey, there's reason to believe he could be good. And I like Quinn Menierez, who should be as effective as well. That could be a pretty good guard tandem. So again, Lloyd Cushenberry isn't exactly a great center. He was a third-round center who kind of plays like it, but as a whole, this, you can hide that pretty well, so I wouldn't be too concerned about it. Sean Payton loves having talented offensive lines, and I think he'll have one in his first year in Denver. Number 4, I'm going with Ben Powers' former team, the Baltimore Ravens. So Ben Cleveland will be replacing Ben Powers. A lot of Bens involved here at left guard, who has under 500 career snaps. So there's the question mark going in is Ben Cleveland. He's been fine when he's been in the league. What will we see from him? The other interior guys, Tyler Linderbaum had a great rookie year, and Kevin Zeitler's been pretty consistently good. So the tackles, Ronnie Stanley and Morgan Moses, very good tackles. The Ben Cleveland thing, there's kind of a question mark with every offensive line in this tier area. It seems that is theirs, but it's not a huge question mark. I think this line's going to be very good. Number 3, the Philadelphia Eagles. Some people would have them as number 1, I think. I think some people would, because you have Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson as maybe the best tackle tandem in football, certainly up there. Landon Dickerson and Jason Kelsey, 2 elite players at their position. You literally have 4 elite players on this offensive line. But to some degree, offensive line is a weak position sport, and you have Cam Jurgens, who's we basically seen nothing from. Second round pick was picked 51st in the 2022 NFL draft. He's gonna probably, I assume, be the guy to step in and play right guard. That's my concern. It's still an elite offensive line. It's still number 3, but losing Samelo could hurt them. We'll see if it does, but they're at 3. Number 2, I have the Lions, who, Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell, that's an incredible tackle tandem in its own right. Sewell somehow become underrated. I don't know how that happened, but he's amazing. He's really good. I was watching his tape earlier this offseason and was kind of like, why is this guy not getting the credit he deserves? His numbers are good, tape good, had the draft position. Why have we forgotten about him all of a sudden? He's great. Frank Ragnow is also great at center. Now, the guard tandem is maybe what you would knock a little bit. Vitae at right guard. He's coming off an injury. He's really good when he's healthy. He's just coming off an injury, and that's maybe the concern. Jonah Jackson's, I would say, is good. Maybe not great, but good. So I think 5 good offensive linemen, and again, you kind of have the no bad 2 offensive linemen next to each other, or I should say no non-elite 2 offensive linemen next to each other, with Decker, Ragnow, and Sewell kind of spread out across the line. Really good offensive line. I have it at 2, but it is not my number 1 offensive line. That belongs to the Cleveland Browns. Of course, it's the Cleveland Browns. Maybe not of course, but, you could argue, again, like I said, I think you could argue number 2 or number 3 above the Browns if you wanted to. But, tackles, Jedrick Wills, who is a really good player, but honestly gets probably is the biggest knock against him is just he's probably the worst player on his offensive line. It's just because of how good the offensive line is. Conklin's the other tackle who's great. The guards of Wyatt Teller, who's amazing, and Joel Pitano, who is a very good guard as well, and Ethan Pocket, maybe the best center in football. So their weak link is still like a good left tackle, like a top 15 left tackle in the NFL. That's their weak link in this situation. Incredible offensive line. It is number 1 on my list. What's your list? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.